Welcome in, everybody, whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world. This is Coast to Coast. And let's open this thing up with some ridiculousness from our Mariners, because we got this tight race here in the AL West. And, we got to kick this thing off with Jerry Dipoto, our GM. Now, this is an older quote, but apparently he's still kind of into this. His goal is 54% win rate. And the problem with that is that's only 87 and a half games. But
yeah,
54%, he's going to be in a World Series at some point. At 54%, you're not going to make the playoffs very often. It's a weird stance. He went on to say in that press conference he's doing fans a favor, asking for patience to win a World Series. At 54%, you're going to have a lot of patience.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, in all honesty, you guys have been patient for decades.
Yes.
Like decades, So how much more patience? Okay, number one, I have a problem with this. So number one, you got a guy asking you to be patient when his goal is a 54% win rate. How the hell do you want me to be patient when you're saying I'm going to give you a 500 ball club and I just want you to be patient? Oh, hell no. You might as well just come out. No, Bo, I don't know. That would piss. If I was a Mariners fan, that would absolutely enrage me.
It's so ridiculous. If you were going to give a percentage, at least say 58%, because then at least you have a record at the end of the season that you can go to the playoffs with. 87 games doesn't get you there consistently.
He really should have said 56. You didn't have to say 58. 56% would have given you 91 wins, and that could make you to the playoffs. Specifically. So you need about 90 to 92 wins to get into the playoffs as a sixth seed. That would be right about where he's at. He's not far off. The idea of him doing this or him saying that, and I didn't hear the quote other than what you just kind of said right there and how he put it out there. But the truth of the matter is that he's not far off from where he's trying to do that. And at 54%, if you were to take away a week's worth of games out of that and have like just on the average where you are on an upswing on that 54%, like 54.8, 0.9%, you would be able to possibly, if it were done properly in September, like if that upswing was in September, you could be in that 89 area, 88 area, and depending on how everybody else is, which right now everybody's in the middle of the pack, you're finding that 82 is going to be a lot of people at that 500 mark rather than too many teams way above that. That being said, it's possible that an 88 or 89 win team makes the playoffs.
No. I'm not saying you can't make it there. Obviously, you can. What I'm saying is it's not a consistent. 87 games does not consistently get you in the playoffs.
Correct.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. If it were 91, 92, there's been years that guy misses the playoffs. So, but at least at 91, 92, you can look at that year and be like, okay, we had a shot. You look at 87 wins, it's an outlier for you to get in. 87 can, but it's not every year. And when you're saying, I'm going to be in a World Series with this model over the course of a decade, I can tell you that's not true. Because we've watched it for over a decade.
Well, yeah.
So, I guess he's at 50. He said 54%. That's what he said.
Yes.
He wants a 54% win rate because ultimately, as I looked at 54.9%, that gives you 89 wins. Now, but that's 55%.
No, but that's why I say you need to be somewhere in that 58%.
Well, no, but
Well, no,
I
hold on.
understand the thought process on what it is that you're saying. I'm not actually dismissing what you're saying. He needs to know better than numbers. Like he needs to say, I need to be at 55%. He can't say 54%. However, 54% is well above average for a team in baseball.
Yes, and had he been talking about just getting in the playoffs, I'm with it. If you're talking about in the World Series, you need to be better than a 55 win team.
Yeah, that's what I was.
A
That's
55% win team.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what I was getting at.
However,
Like,
stop that. Let's
Generally.
scratch that a little bit. The Phillies in 22 was a 55% win team.
No. There's always an outlier. Right?
There's more and more outliers recently. A lot more outliers recently in comparison. Let's go back and say, minus the Dodgers last year, who wound up as the number 1 seed.
Sure.
The last 3 World Series before that, it was a 6th seed or under. It was a wild card team that made to the World Series.
Yes, we are talking Mariners, Rob. And but again, I'm just talking. If you want your fan base to be on board, you don't want to be barely making the playoffs, especially because you're talking over the span of a decade. You want to hear something better out of your GM than this. You don't want to say, I don't want my GM saying, hey, you know what, we're going to barely scrape into the playoffs, maybe, and somehow that'll get us into a World Series. Like that is not a vote of confidence out of your GM. Like I want to hear, at least 56%. Give me something where we're consistently competitive to get into the playoffs.
Well,
right?
My thing, that's what I said earlier. I don't know how he expects you to be patient for a World Series win when he's looking at an 88, 89, win team, because you guys have had an 89 and 88 win team a lot of times over those decades, and he has not gotten you anything. So
a lot of times it missed the playoffs.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, or what I'm saying is how does he expect you to be patient when he's not giving you a product that's better than what you've had over the past 4? Now, if he wants you to be patient and saying, look, this is my plan of action. This is how we're going to get to the playoffs. How we're going to get to the World Series. Just be patient on all these bullet points that I'm giving you. Okay, give me a plan on how you get there. Don't just give me a 54% win rate, because we've been having that forever. Give me a plan on how you plan to get there. Are we going to do it through the draft? Are we going to do it through free agency? How are we going to get the ERA down? How are we going to get our hitting down? No, give me a plan that shows me and it wants me to be patient, because I'll be patient. If you got a viable plan to get there, I'll be patient. But don't give me the same product.
I just enjoyed we are doing the fan base a favor by asking for patience. I mean, I'm not even that worried about the World Series yet. How about we get into the playoffs consistently?
Or get even past the first round, because you've been in the playoffs.
We've gone once in 23 years. I wouldn't really say that we've been in the playoffs, right? Like we got in there once. We beat up on Toronto, and that was it. But
well, that's true. I give you that.
Give me a plan to where we're consistently competitive, where we're in the playoff mix. Once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen.
Right.
But you do have to make the playoffs to win a World Series. Like it's this weird thing that's required.
Yeah. There's definitely been no team has ever not made the playoffs and won the World Series.
That's what I'm saying. So it'd be really cool if maybe we could do that part first. Like World Series.
Listen, you guys went there. You guys played 2 games in 1 game, 18 innings, and had you hit a run, got 1 run in that 18th inning, you would have won that game, likely won the series. You guys lost that game. You guys lost that game. And you lost it to Jay's team right above me right there in the 18th inning. And I remember watching him pull that pitcher, and I'm like, this is a mistake. Leave that pitcher in.
I actually remember that too.
Leave that pitcher in. And what happened? Pulled him out, bam. 2, was it a double and then a single, and run scored.
Yep.
I remember that specifically because I was telling Frankie, because I was on a call with him when the game was going on. And when Frankie said, they just pulled the pitcher, I'm like, I know. I said, dude, this is our moment. And It was a beautiful moment, man.
Well,
It was
and this is
beautiful.
exactly it. Is they're fine with the fact that they sell tickets, they make money, they're happy with it. It's frustrating as a fan. What's happening, Brad?
No, but see, you know what? But there is something that Rob is saying there that makes sense. If
Yeah.
there was a little bit more fan excitement and stuff that, if you believe that the fans have no say whatsoever to any of the play that happens on the field, I disagree with you. Because again, let's go back to 22. I feel that the fans won 3 of those games specifically against opponents because they were so loud and so deafening the entire time. It affected. They beat Strider. It was the first time Strider had lost at Citizens Bank Park ever. And it was so loud in that place. Same that the Braves said it, the Padres said it. The next year, the Marlins said it, and the Braves said it again. That it was berserk. And so, not that there is a Seattle sports guy, but maybe it's time that there should be. You know what I mean? Maybe it's somebody who's got to go out there, and maybe it's on the team itself to hire that person. That mascots don't talk. Mascots, in fact, I feel like are so far away from being able to hype up the crowd. I think that mascots are exciting to a crowd, a specific, demographic of the crowd. But the truth of the matter is that if you went out there, you, Bo, yourself, don't even put on paint, and you were the one that was going out there, and before the beginning of an inning, where you needed just a little bit, you're like, let's go Mariners, and you're doing a clap and stuff like that, and you were getting 2 sections set, just starting to do that right before the first pitch of the inning. And then that 2 sections become 3 or 4, and then maybe the organist jumps in for a second, to kind of get the whole crowd going. It's little moments like that sometimes an energy can feel like the batter can get a little bit of that energy feel.
For sure.
And all of a sudden now he hits a single. And now it's like passing the bat and things of that nature.
Oh, home field advantage is a real thing. No question.
And Rob has got a little bit of say there because he's like, yeah, they don't care there. The team, the Seattle is, why can't they bring some of the 12 atmosphere to a baseball park?
It's because of ownership. Like, it has really killed the vibe for the fan base at Mariners games because it used to be really loud. Like when they were playing in the Kingdome, right? Even in the years that they weren't necessarily good, right? The crowd was loud. Like it was an atmosphere for sure. But at this point, we're talking 20 plus years of them being like, oh yeah, we're close. And then they'll never do anything either in the off season or before the trade deadline to push us over the edge. A lot of times we end up losing somebody and we end up falling short. So they keep giving us these disappointing years, and then they wonder why fans aren't.
When was the last time they changed the coach?
2 years ago.
So 2 years ago they changed the coach. What was the purpose of them changing the coach?
Because he'd been here for a decade and we made it to the playoffs once. But we still have the same GM. And the thing is
what kind of naked pictures does he have of ownership?
All of them.
Why haven't we seen them? Why haven't we seen them?
And the ownership doesn't care about wins so much. They are, they care about it being profitable. And, some of that was when the Mariners, there was talk about them leaving Seattle and Nintendo bought the team. Right. And that was a thank you to the Seattle area for that. Here in Redmond, Washington is where Nintendo made their stateside debut. It's where they landed. And so it was a thank you to the Seattle area that, to keep the team here. But they don't have any vested interest in baseball. that ownership group sold the majority shares, I think 3 or 4 years ago now. But the new ownership group also doesn't really care about winning. They just care about doing good enough. So that's where, Rob,
is that what they say?
No, they don't.
Is that why? In fact, is that why you're so bent by the 54%?
54% falls right in line with the fact of we want to be just good enough to keep people here, because that's what that number is.
Mm-hmm.
That's legitimately what the 54% is. 54% says you will accidentally sneak into the playoffs a couple of times, but you're competitive most of the year, and that's it. But they don't pay anybody. And anytime a big contract comes up, they let the guy go, and then he goes a ring somewhere else. So it's not that they're actively out in the public saying, "Hey, we're determined to be bad." They're not the A's. Instead they're like, "Oh yeah, we're going to do just enough to keep you hanging on, and we're going to sell a lot of merch, we're going to sell a lot of tickets, but we're never going to really go get that guy that could push you over the top." And so they don't tell you actively, but they tell you through actions.
Stat guy.
Yes.
What is the average attendance for the Seattle Mariners last year and up to current this year?
Well, give me a minute. I can find it. I know their attendance this year is more middle of the road, but it's typically the bottom third in the league.
Yeah, but it's good enough is the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking that question right now. The only reason why I'm asking is because with the average price of tickets, and you would probably know that a little bit better, Bo, or maybe even Rob can jump in on this and see what the average price of tickets are for that game and what the average attendance is and how that equals out to the amount of actual. And I'm not even saying nobody's buying one kernel of popcorn, one sip of soda. I'm just finding out on the actual specifics of the tickets themselves. Does that cover the amount of money they are spending on their roster? That's what I am trying to accomplish right here in this little exercise that we are doing.
I got you. And Rob is right here. So in the time that Nintendo owned it, the owner never came to a single game.
The owner of Nintendo?
Yeah.
No, but he's not the CEO of the Mariners.
Well,
I'm sure if Nintendo owns this, and I'm dealing with a very similar situation with Comcast and the Flyers.
Yeah, so Nintendo doesn't. They're not the majority anymore. Yeah. But what he's saying is, over the course of time that they did, which was 20 some years, I think, the owner never came to a game.
Yeah.
Like if I owned the team, even if I wasn't a big baseball guy, you know what I would do? I'd at least make it to one of them.
Right.
Usually the first one.
So Seattle's attendance has gone down the last 3 years. So in 2023, their average attendance was 33.9. Last year, their average attendance was 31.6. And this year, their average attendance is 27.2, which has them ranked 19th in baseball.
All right, so I don't care about I don't care where they're ranked at or whatever, but what I do care about, so you're 27.2.
Yep.
All right, and what's the average ticket price for a Mariners game?
Average ticket price for a Mariners game, it says 84.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
$84 per ticket.
Yep.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money right there. I mean, $84 is an expensive ticket. So let's go with, so there we go. So we got 84 times
expensive here in Seattle.
27.2. That gives 2.284 times 248 times 81 equals $185 million. What's their payroll?
Seattle.
It's about that.
Yeah, I think they're like close. Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, that about covers the payroll.
So that makes sense to me in that regards.
Seattle's payroll, they're saying right now, is 157.7.
Yeah. See, now that's where you actually have a stance. So now they're bringing in 185 million. You could say that they get taxed like everything else, but we ain't bought a drop of soda, beer,
jerseys, nothing.
No, nobody has given me the 100 pounds of chicken yet.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You haven't got parking in there.
So, but parking doesn't. Parking
right.
goes to the city. Parking does not go to the team, and it's usually like that across the board. So, like if you're going to if you're parking, that always is attracted by the city. The city takes the parking because that's their revenue. That's how they make their money, and that's how you actually save on taxes for every game that you're doing all of that stuff. So that kind of makes a little bit of sense to me. But the 185 to 157 is your disparity. That tells me that there's almost $40 million that there's available for a player. And that's where you start to call them out on.
Yeah, so it's actually the actual number for the players itself is 151,266,000, and then the other money goes to the coaches. So it's like 157, 158 total dollars, but based on players, it's 151 to the players.
So, and they are making just on average right now 185. And that doesn't say, hey, listen, if you guys went on a 10-game winning streak, all those numbers are going to jump up. So they're going to be bringing in close to 30,000 people in there. Your stadium can hold how many?
47.8.
37.8.
47.8. 47.8. And then if you get standing room, it's like 51.
Hold on. That would make it the largest stadium in Major League Baseball.
No, Dodgers are 56. Yankee Stadium is 52. Coors Field is 50. Chase Stadium is like 4. Mariners are a top 10 stadium, like people-wise, like seating-wise.
Yeah.
It's like 47.
It's a big stadium.
Yeah.
So I mean, because I know that we only have, even with standing room only, I think the highest that we've gotten was 48,000 in Philadelphia at Citizens Bank Park. That all being said, we're only going off of the 27,000 number on the average. So realistically, again, I mean, 185. So that is $34 million.
No, that's why we're frustrated.
A year. So $34 million a year. You know what that buys? A big bat.
Yes.
A big bat.
And then you start getting all of the other things that come in, and that's where you get this number.
How come somebody is not louder than this then? Why? I mean, there's sports talk radio in there. Is there not sports talk? Are they all afraid to talk about the ownership so much that there isn't able to make waves? And I tell you, and the reason why I'm asking these questions now in Seattle.
So this does get talked about here in Seattle all the time.
And nobody's loud enough. That's the problem.
Oh, well, ownership has to care.
Yeah.
People still show up. They're still making 30 mil even with the negative connotation. So it doesn't matter to them.
You could say that exactly about the Cubs, except for a much higher problem. So the Cubs payroll right now is 194 million, which that's actually on the low end for where their payroll could be. They're 194 million. The Cubs last season made $666 million.
Aren't they about to do so? And I'm going to leave the Cubs out of this for a second, only because when I was there, I heard rumors about them putting in a $1.4 billion renovation to Wrigley Field
for the All-Star game.
And so putting in $1.4 billion into a stadium that you're going to keep looking exactly the same is ridiculous to me. Yep. But beyond that, I understand it's Wrigley Park. So they're going to wind up what? They're going to build up so big so that they can take down the bleachers across the street so that you can't see them anymore because you're not going to be able to see from across the street. Is that what's going to wind up happening?
I don't know. I don't even know what the plan is. I know he wanted to add another hotel. He wanted to add a bunch of other stuff for like the All-Star festivities and things like that. It's going to be a $1.4 billion renovation for like what they call Wrigleyville, which is like the little area around Wrigley Field.
Right.
Only 200 million of that is actually being used on stadium renovations. The rest of it's being used in like new hotels, new this, new that, new this, new that. So he's using a lot of the money outside of the ballpark just to.
He's going to be stopping the traffic, is what that is. That sounds like he's taking over the streets, and those streets are going to be walking streets at that point. And you're like, he's not going to be able to stop the traffic in that main intersection.
No,
so
the
main
street,
intersection is going to still have to be there. because they have parking literally right across the street there, and that's a main thoroughfare. It's it's a 4-lane highway kind of going past there. So there's no way that they can stop that.
When you went there, you saw the apartment buildings, right? With the bleachers on the top of the buildings across the street.
Yes.
So there is, I think, 9 apartment buildings that are behind the outfield that go all the way across. The owner of the Cubs has tried to buy those apartment buildings since.
So I got all the lowdown on that. Actually, I learned all about that while I was there. The Cubs own 8 of those apartments.
Yep, the one they do not own.
One guy does not, and nobody's allowed to sit there, and nobody can sit there. In fact, it's almost like it's the guy on the end, anyways. You wouldn't have a really good seat by watching, by sitting over there in the first place. But that guy's holding out just because he's trying to stick it to them, because I think he was a partner in 3 of those other buildings and wound up getting screwed by the Cubs because Illinois had to jump in on it.
Yes, and the reason why he's basically sticking it to the Cubs owner is not once, but if the Cubs owner is able to purchase that 9th building, those buildings are gone. Those buildings will no longer be in existence. He wants to demolish all those buildings to build Wrigley Field even bigger back, to build more of Wrigley Field forward, to just basically turn Wrigleyville into not only a baseball venue, but like something you can use year round. Similar to what
that sounds like what Tony Khan was wanting to do with the Jaguars.
Yeah, like that's why this guy doesn't want to sell the building to the Cubs owner. He's like, the moment I sell this building, whether he gives me $20 million, $30 million, the moment I sell this building, all the history of this buildings, all the history of what Wrigley Field is with these apartment buildings and people sitting on the roof and all that is going to be gone, because these things are going to be demolished and it's going to be like they never existed. And he doesn't want that to happen.
Stop. That's such a crock of shit. That is a crock of shit on that owner.
I know.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. He's trying to raise the money. He's trying to raise the number up. That's all that is. That is lip service. He could care less about the history, because the truth of the matter is that Wrigley Field is Wrigley Field. There ain't no history about the apartments behind there. Nobody cares about the apartments behind there.
And the funny thing is that his 2 partners that sold their buildings prior to that, the first partner sold it for $7.4 million. The second partner sold it for $12. And right now, Ricketts has offered this guy $30 million for his last building. He keeps saying no. So it's just like, at what point are you just going to be like, you know what, screw it?
50.
Why not just build the damn villa around the apartments, leave the apartments there? You can still build everything else he's wanting to build if he secures that.
You can't, because the apartment buildings are literally probably 30 feet behind the back of the stadium. There's a little road that goes right between the back of the stadium and those apartment buildings, where once you demolish those apartment buildings, you can essentially take that road out of the equation as well.
The road will remain. They'll actually pave it. They'll charge people $500. You can put a little brick down and do all that stuff. This is common stuff.
And you can make all those apartment buildings a big parking lot if you need it for additional parking, where you just drive down that main road, and each lot here you go in, it's got a certain amount of stalls. You have to pay a certain amount of money. Like, that's more money going to the ballpark. But that's ultimately what they want to do. They know if they do the All-Star game, you're going to need more parking. You're going to need more ways for people to get access to the ballpark. So you take those apartment buildings out, that's 6 or 7 additional parking lots right there to give people access.
That's it. They're not going to do parking there. They're going to, no. So this is the Xfinity, same thing that Xfinity is doing right now. Comcast is about to do the same thing in Philadelphia. And that's exactly what they would do out there, that you would wind up having smaller venues to do concerts and things like that around Wrigleyville. So that if it's like, you would find that Wrigleyville will become more of a stop for football games per se, because of the different venues that they would have there to be able to accommodate larger groups of people. Right now, they don't have those spaces. And like, I've been to a couple of the bars around there. I mean, those bars are set up. I went 3 blocks away to get my pizza, to get the deep dish pizza. Okay. And that was a decent sized bar that could hold a couple hundred people, but that was 3 blocks away. And then you had to get your pizza and then take it to go to
Was it Murphy's? Was it Murphy's?
No, I think it was called something different.
Okay.
But either way, I mean, ultimately, because I grabbed the pizza and then we put it in the car before we went in, because we literally parked right across the street there. And then I didn't realize because it said, hey, it was $36 for all day. And then I got hit with the game fee because it didn't say that beforehand was then another 60 on top of that. So it was 36 plus the 60 was like $96 to park, which was still fine because it was literally right across the street. I didn't really complain about that. $100 to park nowadays isn't ridiculous, and especially in a city called Chicago, doesn't seem so out of the loop for stuff like that. But then we're not talking about Chicago. We're talking about Seattle here.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that Seattle is only got what, like 700,000 people in it.
Oh, no. The metro area, we're over 3 million. We have like 3.2.
Well, metro. That's metro area amongst everything. I'm talking the actual city itself is about 700,000.
Yeah, it's a little more. It's just over 1 million, I believe. But the metro area is so close to Seattle that's why it includes all of that, because
yeah, but they got it. I mean, Tacoma is considered a suburb of the metro Seattle area. So
they don't generally include Tacoma in that. So usually when they're doing the Seattle area, they include Seattle, Bellevue, Redmond, Kirkland. Like it's usually that tight group. Tacoma is generally viewed on its own. Same with Olympia, stuff like that, just because it's far enough away that it's not generally grouped into the Seattle metro. So yeah, usually when it's the metro area, it's going to be basically Seattle, and then from Renton to kind of the Everett area. So it's kind of a tight window. And yeah, it ends up being like 3.2, 3.3, something like that. Now, we do have a lot of people that have transplanted here that are not sports fans in general, because they're here for all the tech jobs. And so a lot of those transplants, if you ask them about sports, they don't even know that sports teams exist. So there is that element of as well.
Yeah, but so I believe that to a small extent, not a big extent. And the reason why is because baseball is part of the fabric in Japanese culture. So, and if it's Nintendo, and I got to imagine that there was probably a strong Japanese presence.
So it's less that now. So Nintendo is not really a big player here anymore. Now a lot of our transplants are from, India, Korea, stuff like that. And, so they're more on the tech side, and, they're more on like Microsoft, Expedia, Google, like they're here for those jobs. So no, oddly enough, like there is a huge, in fact, if you go into Redmond, a huge Indian population. So
they're going to have a cricket team.
They do have cricket. They actually have cricket played in Redmond on the weekends.
No doubt in my mind. If you have a big Indian population, that's what I'm saying. Do they play cricket games in the ballpark?
Not that I'm aware of, at least not yet.
Be interesting to see how crazy that would be in terms of would they fill up 45,000 people in there? That baseball field is about the same size as a cricket.
No, it is. It is.
They would have to change a little bit. They'd have to remove the mounds. The way that is, they would have to grass over some of that stuff, but they could make that occur. It would be interesting to kind of see if there is that type of Indian culture that's there, which isn't surprising to me, actually. I mean, it would make sense that there would be that type of situation that's going there. But to answer your question, Rob, no, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be a Stepford to my team. I am not a Stepford to my team. In fact, I kind of proved that this year with the Sixers. Next year, I'm going to step it up a little bit where I am going to go against ownership. Now, I am just the Philly sports guy. Philly sports guy does not have enough of a voice. I don't think I have enough of a voice to bring down ownership of a basketball team. But you know what? I'm going to try. Because I don't like ownership a little bit. And the sentiment right now agrees with me. So, but everybody is quiet. Sometimes you need the one voice to just start to get loud. and start to bring it up. And when you're yelling in the right direction, and when I say that, I mean, I don't curse. I have real reason on why I don't want them here. Like I said, it's like there's so many different things that this ownership group has done to prove to me that they do not care about the fan that they are servicing. That's
Yep.
enough for me to be able to start pushing. I have a bigger problem with the Flyers, but there's a reason why the biggest dick in the sky says Comcast on it. You know what I mean? And that's going to be too big of a battle for me to go to undertake, because they
have an
pull away my
entire
tickets.
They have an entire company on not giving any cares about who they service.
But but you also understand, like, they actually control the tickets that can allow me into the building or not. So too big of a bully to fight. However, the ownership of the Sixers isn't a big bully. Like, if they are trying to play bully, they're playing that bully card. But I am not interested in playing that game anymore. And the truth of the matter is that I would love for an ownership group to come in here, bring, buy the Sixers, and then include, I guess they would call it the Philadelphia Bells or whatever it is of the WNBA, and get them involved with this and stuff like that, and be able to kind of put that in there. I think that Philadelphia is ready for a female team, especially since the Wings, it looks like, for lacrosse, has had so small of an attendance this year that I don't think that they're going to renew. I think they're going to wind up moving to a different arena, which means that no lacrosse is going to be here, which means that that's going to open the door to be able to have women's basketball. You got Wanda Sykes, who is actually a well-known person, who would want to be like the face of the woman basketball team. And I would promote that. But I don't want this ownership to own it. This is like if the ownership was like the owner of the A's. If I was an A's fan, I would be on them to sell the team. And I would be loud every day. I don't care where they're at. I don't care if they're in Sacramento. I don't care if they go to Montreal. I don't care where they're at. I would be on them to sell the team. And that's what I'm going to be on the Sixers. I'm going to be on the Sixers to sell a team. They may not want me in the stadium, but they can't keep me out of there because they aren't in control of that. And as long as I do what I'm supposed to do, i.e., don't curse, don't create a disruptance, I could do whatever it is I want to do in that building because I'm paying for the tickets the right way.
Yeah. And Joe, of course, Jerry heard you. The thing is you have to have an owner that cares what people are saying. Jerry is one of those guys. He hears that noise. He doesn't like it. Here in Seattle, they don't hear it because they don't care.
Well, no, but I think nobody's talking loud enough.
I mean,
that's part of this.
It gets talked about on literally every sports show, and it has for years. So it's not that they can't hear it. But if you're still making 30, 40 million just on the attendance, it hasn't gotten bad enough that you got to do something.
Well, so the thing is that that's not been put out there. You start talking about the money, and all of a sudden everybody starts clamoring. And then you may see, oh, well, now it's only going to be 26,000 because people are getting angry now that extra 1,000 could make a difference. Like, all it is like when you're thinking about that, you're talking about 1 in every 7 person that gets angry enough that says, you know what, I ain't spending the money. So, and ultimately, it's like if you got it down to 26,000, now all of a sudden you're starting to take a chunk out of their pocket. Sports talk radio in Seattle is only able to say so much because they cannot get reneged by the team. They can't afford to have the team say, we will do nothing for you now.
Yes.
Because of this. So that being said, that's the reason why sports talk radio can't do as much. The fact that there is no Seattle sports guy out there means that somebody is not getting the attention. Like, somebody isn't saying, okay, look at me instead. And this is now I'm calling them out. I'm saying this about this team. I'm the one who's saying all the things. And I am a Mariners fan. Do it with a Mariners jersey on and saying, I'm calling out ownership. I want better from my ownership. I don't need ownership to sell the team. I want better from them. Everybody's making money. Millionaires making millions of dollars. And we're not even talking about a drop of soda being sold yet. And there are 30 million, 35 million over that just by average attendance right now. Thinking about that just alone, and somebody going out there and saying $35 million, we could have gone after somebody like Kyle Schwarber. We could have gone after somebody with a big enough bat to make a difference. Think about this. $35 million is exactly the same amount of money that Trey Turner's getting paid. He's getting paid $30 million. Harper's getting paid $35 million.
That's the thing. We could have went and got Harper.
You could have. Harper, I don't think works in your city. Just
no, but
different scenario.
There was money for him. That's the point. Is you could have made a move, and instead we didn't do anything. And we've watched this year over year over year. And to answer Frankie's question earlier, do I think we deal a guy? No. We very rarely do anything at the trade deadline. We certainly don't get better, but it's very rare that we get rid of anybody either. We don't really do anything.
Rob, you can't worry about that. That's going to happen everywhere. So people selling tickets are going to always be a thing. Right now, reselling tickets is a thing now. That's a whole business, 100% on that. And yes, I do TED Talks if somebody wants to pay me the money. You know what I mean? Because you're right. I am good at them. I am, because when you start to get focused, this is a focused conversation here. And what's happening in Seattle happens in a number of places, but they don't have the person to be able to start the movement. Everybody clamors, but nobody is going to be the face because nobody's a face. It's very similar everywhere. The thing is that I happen to have a face. And like it says, that's why, we're going to find out about with the Sixers this year coming up. I am going after them. I'm going after them a little bit because they held the city hostage with this thing. When people were asking me, I went through all those interviews saying, hey, what do you think is going to happen? When do you think they're going to break ground on the new arena in Center City? I'm like, they will never break ground there. And look who's right. Look who's right. The entire time, because I knew that they weren't going to break ground up there, that it was all a farce, all a bap. Well, we want to go to Camden, we want to go here, we want to go there, trying to hold the city hostage for their basketball team. And that's where I don't go for that. That was when, again, this goes back to the Norman Brayman days when this friggin' used car salesman from Florida decided that he was going to try to take the Eagles to Arizona because he didn't like Philadelphia. Well, go shove it up your ass, Norman. I hope you still are not resting in peace in your grave. Because I tell you, he pissed me off. He pissed me off back then. Well, the Harris Group is doing the exact same thing. They got the new shiny toy down in Washington that they're getting a new stadium for. They got that new shiny toy over there. They got the New Jersey Devils when they got the first pick in the draft, and they got Hughes. Now they got a team that's actually doing okay, making some money, because the moment you make the playoffs in the NHL, that's where you start to make some real money. No, and then you got the Sixers, who they could care less. And ownership has shown that they could care less. And what has happened now is now the players could care less. That's why Embiid didn't want to play. That's why the team sucked so bad, because ownership, you take on the attitude of your owners. When you had the guy who owned Fanatics up there, when he was doing it and he was having the white parties and stuff like that, he at least cared about the players, and they cared enough about him to try to win. Now they didn't get past the second round of the playoffs, but even still, they tried. They made the effort. There was no effort, and there was no effort starting from the ownership on down on the Sixers this year. And that's where it was talked about a little bit, man, little people are going to cry about it, but nobody said they should sell the team, because there's no way 97.5 is going to say that. That's one of the radio stations here, the sports talk radio station, because they don't want to lose the contract with the Sixers.
Of course.
94 could care less. They could say a little bit more. That's the other sports talk radio, because sports talk is really big in Philadelphia, because we think a lot about our sports, but ultimately nobody is going to step up and go and be like, I am going to be the champion of this cause and say that I want ownership to change. Because until ownership changes, all it's going to do is remain the same over and over again.
I know. We've been watching it for 20 plus years. And Joe, this right here is this was actually, or the point we were making is, the Mariners are 30 plus million ahead before TV money, any kind of jerseys, food, all of that. So I mean, there's no reason for them not to at least attempt to be competitive.
Yeah.
So no, Rob, the problem, Rob, on why hiring me wouldn't help you guys is because I am not a Mariners fan. You need somebody who is a Mariners fan to take on this charge. And he doesn't have to be a super fan, but he's got to be well enough spoken and know all of the details and have the right people around him supporting him. You know what I mean? Like, I have fans around me that support me. And if I was to go on this rampage about the Sixers and we were to put that, like, take this out of this show and put it onto social media, there would be a clamoring around me of agreement. There's going to be some people that think that I'm nuts. That no, there's no way that they're going to treat, like, people take that.
That I bet you.
Right, yeah, exactly. But there's a certain level of people that are going to be like, there's no way that they're going to sell the team. So that's not that they don't agree with me. It's just that they are automatically being negative because of they don't want to start the fight. You know what I mean?
And this is exactly why it can't be me here in Seattle, because I'm still trying to get into these rooms. I don't need to block my entry before I even get there.
No, I agree. It's not a matter of that. It's a matter of, but there's somebody out there. There is somebody out there that would be willing to take this on. Somebody who shows up to a lot of these games. This is somebody that's got to already spend the money. Like, it can't be somebody like, I have something to say about the Phillies because I go to these games. I spend the time. I spend the energy. I want the Phillies to do well, and I'm there showing that I want them to do well. I remember in 22, it was like I was getting made fun of left and right. I remember one specific game, they had a rain delay that lasted like 6 hours. And at midnight, there was like 8 people left. I'm one of them, and then the camera found me. You know what I mean? Looking like a drowned rat because it rained. You know what I mean? But there I was still there and still supporting the team. And there was only 22,000 showing up to those games. And it wasn't until we won in that first round of the playoffs that all of a sudden 45,000 people showed up. But I was there at 70 home games that year, cheering them on and trying to do the thing. And that's when people said, well, it was my fault that we lost. Actually, I think it was my fault that we won. But I think that's somebody's got to take the ownership of that. And I'm not patting myself on the back. See, you're right. The Phillies did not win any of those games because I was there.
Of course.
But my support of that resonated. Because when there was 22,000 people and me, I had a bigger presence. The moment that doubled, I have a smaller presence, and that's just natural because I can outweigh about 10,000 people as my persona. You know what I mean? I'm not patting myself on the back. This isn't a thing like that. This is a matter of expressing fandom when it goes up against an ownership level. Now, the Phillies ownership actually do care, and they do realize that winning games and spending money equates to more money. So it's like when you start playing the numbers, they're playing numbers twice as hard, twice as heavy. And when it comes to the Mariners, we were talking about a $35 million difference, but that's at 186. There's 300 million coming in.
Exactly.
Of that stuff. But there's a higher payroll, obviously. Hey, we got 300 million coming in, and we've got $260 million of payroll. You know what I mean? Or $250 million of payroll.
The thing is even if the percentage of money coming in was the same, right? Or the exact dollar figure, saying everything's doubled and you're still only making the 30 mil. You know what you do have though? A competitive baseball team.
Not only that, and I keep repeating this because it does make sense. Not one chicken finger, the 20 pounds of chicken that somebody gave me has not been not once, not one of the, not one sip of soda, not one beer, anything. None of that is being covered whatsoever.
But that's my point, is even if the payroll was double what it is, and you're still only making that 30 million, we're not talking about any of the rest of that stuff. The difference between the two teams is more competitive, even though, and so that's what the argument is. That's where the frustration is it's like, look, those ticket sales go up when you have a better team on the field.
So how do you start to solve that problem? As you do need to get into those rooms, because when the general manager is having conversations, you got to start asking harder questions. When you start doing those things and you start actually giving responsibility to the person it's supposed to be responsible. Hey, listen, you don't play anything. You don't try to bat. You don't try to pitch. You don't try to field. You are the one putting together this team. And so far, you have had a failing record. I want you to speak on that. You're saying 54%. Well, your 54% hasn't held water. Now what?
Well, and that's exactly why I continue to try and get credentials for all of these things, because I want to be able to be in those rooms, because I'm fine with asking that question.
Have them call me. I get you credentialed real quick.
Ask and he shall provide.
Man, I wish. So on a different note, in the football world, we have Jason McIntyre, co-host of The Herd, going in on Dion a little bit, since Dion was hurt about the slide that Shedeur had, and his the way he weighed in, and it was kind of interesting. So here we go.
And Dion is already complaining about his son and what went down at the draft. This, my friends, is why Shedeur Sanders fell in the draft. Front offices were just like, no thank you on Shedeur Sanders, precisely because of this. Hey, Dion, Shedeur's now 23 years old. I'm not telling a grown man what to do, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, Dion. Next time you were asked about it, hey, man, I wish my son the best. I will be rooting for him hard. I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. Go Browns. Just stop. All you're doing is hurting.
So you think his slide had more to do with the pressure of Dion?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't think anyone wants to deal with his headache, like he said.
Well, I think a lot of it, right? The fact that I'm sure Dion told him, you're not going to go here. You're not going to go here. Yeah. Matter of fact, not only are you not going to go there, but we're not even going to talk to people. So they put out that list of people that he wasn't going to talk to. Those are the kinds of things that hurt him, because it wasn't until the fact that when Shedeur came out and said, you know what, we are going to lift that up and we are going to talk to anybody and everybody that wants to talk to me. And then, of course, obviously, then the Browns wound up drafting him. So there was a lot of things I think that got put into place that caused him to fall.
I have a whole different opinion on this.
What you got?
Well, my opinion kind of, and I hate to bring this name back into this, but this is very similar to when what's his face? The quarterback from the 49ers.
Eli. Yeah.
No, not Eli.
No, I thought you said Giants.
The 49ers,
Kaepernick. Okay.
So why he wasn't really blackballed. However, he was, because no team wanted to deal with the aftermath of having him. So listen, the Browns are the only team that could have dealt with the aftermath of having Shedeur Sanders because they have so much else going on in the media that's negative that it doesn't matter. It just gets lost in the mix. It's a mess salad up there in Cleveland. So there was only one team, but no other team wanted to have that. The Eagles were considering it. If the Browns didn't trade up to grab him right then and there, he would have been a Philadelphia Eagle. Now, out of all the teams in the NFL, I think the Eagles are probably the one media spot that would have been able to handle it. He would have said, hey, listen, this is how you come in. This is how you do things. And if you can't do with this, guess what? You were only a 5th round pick. I'm sure we can find a 7th round pick for you somewhere else.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And
I feel like Shedeur and Dion almost blackballed themselves. You know, just by the way that they were handling their business. I think the drama of it was blackballing them.
I think Dion should learn to, be a little more quiet. That being said, worry about your own football team right now. You got a son. Yeah, you got another son that's already had to declare bankruptcy, had to give back all of his stuff because he's a retard. Excuse my language. Because he's an idiot.
Almost made it through the show.
I can't tell you how bad Melanie hates that word. That word.
I'm sorry. It wasn't the word that I should have used there.
You have to say mentally challenged or
no. He's an idiot is the problem.
Yeah.
He's an idiot. He's a mental midget is his problem. You know what I mean? And ultimately, it's been poor parenting by Dion that's created the mess that is Shedeur and his other son. So and who am I to talk about it? I mean, listen, I'm trying to figure it out as a father myself. Everybody has got the ability to parent their own specific way.
Well, it's very.
But when you got everybody talking about it,
it's very LeVar Ball-esque, right?
But I think LeVar did a better job than what Dion's doing. At least LeVar, they got all the fruits of LeVar, right? But Dion is just going about it the wrong way.
So and this is an issue for sure. I mean, nobody's talking about Colorado now, right? Travis Hunter's in the league, Shedeur's in the league. Dion keeps talking about Shedeur. At some point,
let's see how good of a team can be. How good of a coach can you be now, Dion?
Oh, yeah.
Let's see what type of people you got. You were the big name. People want to come play for you. Let's see how you coach this year. I don't want to hear about anybody else talking about you. I want you to show and prove to me by getting to another bowl game, by being 8-3, by when you get 8-3, I want you to retire another person's number because you made them step up from being average to a superstar. That's what I want to see. I want to see how well you are able to train the people that you have around you rather than worrying about riding the coattails of your son. Mm-hmm. And I apologize for the use of that word.
And that brings us to the top of the hour. Thanks for playing along. If you're on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. If you are on Roku, stay tuned for the next hour. Otherwise, we are going to get out of here and try and salvage this thing. We'll see y'all tomorrow.